so I'll fire it up. All right, so the first question being, how did you get your start in forestry? What's your kind of education background and what's been your career path?
Okay. Yeah, and I was trying to think of how to answer this one. Really my start was back in my childhood. I was lucky enough to have uh, two parents that were really interested in the outdoors and shared their values and interest in nature and exercising and being in the outdoors. And so on a
Mhm.
shoestring budget, spent lots of time camping and mountain biking and hiking and canoeing with my family. So I kind of think that's where it all began, and that's really for me was part of how I knew that it would be part of, or that it could be part of a very familiar sort of lifestyle beginning for me. So
Yeah.
learn from them appreciation in nature, and what it feels like to be outside, and the smells and sounds of nature, and then they supported me through my decision to go for a Bachelor of Science at UBC. And fairly early on into that program, I realized there's quite a bit of indoor. It's not
Mhm.
really for me, and was lucky enough to meet a few foresters to be in residence at UBC who described their program to me, and I kind of thought, I think that sounds a lot more like it. So
Yeah.
I switched into the Faculty of Forestry and never looked back. Not that there's not a place for science, but
Yeah.
it's a different form, and for me it was really all about the people and being in the outdoors and that kind of thing. So forming that basis there. Um, yeah, so I was really lucky, and then had that sort of solidified as well when I met some professional foresters who talked a little bit about what they do, working with private landowners or doing forest management. So yeah,
Mhm.
really, really great that I kind of happened upon the people that I did at the time that I did. Um, my career started off with some seasonal work up in Quesnel. I've actually been there for about 23 years, so the seasonal work kind of turned into other things. But
Is that where you
started
grew up then, Quina?
I didn't actually. I grew up in Calgary, but went to UBC and just stayed in BC. Just kind of didn't went back to visit Alberta, but
Mhm.
didn't come back. Um, but there is a good lots of good opportunity in the forest industry in Alberta, just further little further north than where I grew up. So
Mhm.
yeah, so started off with some a seasonal work opportunity in between university sessions, and then that became kind of summer and fall opportunities working for consultants and then traveling in
Mhm.
between, and then kind of built up enough of a base and some knowledge and understanding and work ethic, and knew what people were looking for, and then so kind of got asked by someone if I'd like to do my own business, so and work for them. So I did that. So started my own company and ran a business for a few years. So about 8 years of pretty much pure field work. And then I started with West Fraser in 2006. So that
Okay.
was more of a combination.
And your position with West Fraser in 2006, what did you start as?
So all the experience that I'd had up until that point was in silviculture forestry. And so it really, the planning position that I took, I didn't know what I was doing at all. So I was very lucky that people took a chance on me, and based on the
Yeah.
experience that I had and the way that they knew that I would do my work, and um, that they took a chance on me and gave
Mm.
me the opportunity to work for West Fraser several years after I had decided I wanted to work for West Fraser, but there just weren't the opportunities at that time. It was kind of a different time, a bit of a downturn in the industry for sure. So waited patiently until that opportunity arose, and when it did, I was really really lucky to have that opportunity. So they
Mhm.
did planning for 10 years, and that's a whole, it's not just one thing for sure. It's referrals and consultation with Indigenous communities, which was a real highlight part of it for me, and where
Mhm.
I kind of got my start in that,
Mhm.
and as well as doing all the planning, and it was in BC, so managing different constraints on the land base and managing for different values, determining where you're going to put timber proposals basically for harvesting and roads, and just managing all of those different constraints, and maybe using different harvesting techniques as well, making recommendations around that, and making sure that all the assessments get done beforehand, terrain assessments, some riparian as well, and just kind of so many different parts of planning. So I did that for about 10 years, and some public consultation as well, I should say. But yeah, then I moved into harvest operations, so where you're looking after logging and road building and that kind of thing. And and that was another highlight for me as well. I didn't realize how much how people based it would be. Kind of was thinking a little bit more along the machines, but so I really, I look back fondly to that period. I was doing that for about 2.5 years, and got to know some really exceptional machine operators. Learned about how much of a difference it can make, depending on who the operator is. And they taught me all about the technologies that have developed with some of the machinery. It's pretty impressive to see what they can do out there. And then just also, met people between the ages of 50 and 80 who were just really keen to share their experience and basically help me become better at what I was doing. And we really built, respectful relationships, and leaned on each other for problem solving and overcoming challenges. So, it was a really awesome part of my career. Then I joined the corporate group doing a stewardship role. So the last few years I've been in that, and just started in on more of an Indigenous relations focused role with our corporate group. So yeah, it's been a wild ride. Not every day, no day has been the same.
Yeah,
No 2 days, I should say. So
that's awesome. Yeah. So you kind of covered the highlights there, but just in general, and I'm assuming this is kind of an outdoors thing, but why do you enjoy forestry? What is it about? Is it the people? Is it the outdoors? Is it a bit of everything?
yeah, I would say it is a bit of everything. I think you hit the nail on the head though. People are what makes a difference. So just within the company, West Fraser that I work with, people are really down to earth, as well as the contractors that you're talking with and managing. There's really something about that when people are really strongly connected to the land, and know the plants and know about streams and ecosystems and wildlife. There's something more there than I think is typical of other industries, and so it's quite different. And I was thinking about it the other day. I was packing for a trip that I'm on right now. Actually, I'm on the road. Pack my flannel and my old wool sweater and my boots, and I'm ready for my business trip. So there's just a little bit of a taste of it. And I think on our leadership as well in the company, like they're all very down to earth, very approachable, very solutions oriented people, and our industry is sustainable in many ways, and we want to make sure that we're here for the long term. So that's really, I love that long term view. There's lots to do with forestry that's very detailed and down into just getting down into the details, but there's also a lot that's sort of very high level and strategic, and so I think there's something for everyone in forestry. I really like that. Being clearly part of the solution towards climate change and sort of our climate smart future together, building with more sustainable renewable resources. Packaging is something as well that's pretty exciting. That's changing that front, as far as sustainable packaging, moving away from plastics. So like there's a lot of places where forestry is just really an obvious part of the solution. So and then part of it as well being just such a great opportunity for contributing to economic reconciliation with Indigenous people. So it's something that industry's been kind of working towards in smaller ways in multiple directions for quite a while, and it's growing importance right now. And if we can get the sort of policy mechanisms right, I think we're really well position to make a meaningful difference,
Mhm.
and start to see more benefits flow to the communities. Um, the Recognizing our truth and of the history of Canada, and then being able to move past that and look at concrete ways that we can contribute to reconciliation. So that's really exciting to me, that that's such a big part of what I do, and what a lot of companies are trying to do right now as a whole.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of leads into the question about what you are doing right now. What's your immediate role?
Yeah, so I'm sort of transitioning right now from a stewardship role into an Indigenous relations role. It's actually a role that we haven't had one individual doing. It's a team effort, of course. There's a lot of people in all of our divisions and in corporate that are moving the ball forward on this, and
Mhm.
so we just knew that it was time to have some more focused efforts. So anywhere from helping our company navigate towards PAR certification with the Canadian Council for Aboriginal Business. So we're PAR committed, and now we're moving towards trying to get our bronze certification in the next few years here. So that'll be part of what I'm doing, which is really exciting. Just means lots of conversations with people, so that's
Mhm.
good.
Lots of
But
trips.
and uh, and so that'll be part of it. And then helping to advance agreements as well, where there's communities that are interested in working on different, and it's going to look different for every community.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's more of an economic interest or investment interest. For some communities, it might be more around where problem solving to try and see where either employment directly with West Fraser or supporting indirect employment by Indigenous-led business. That's another really big part of what sometimes where our conversations go. So it's
Okay.
really grassroots kind of conversations with the community leadership and with our company, and then we're trying to figure out how we can support moving towards those mutual benefits together. So yeah, it's really
Nice.
really exciting.
Nice. And so you're working with a team within West Fraser, or are you kind of the point person for those conversations?
That's still evolving right now. There
Nice.
is a team though. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a team of leadership and government relations, as
Mhm.
well as our chief foresters,
Mhm.
and then at all of our divisions, our woods managers, and lots of the planning leads are also involved in that, and
Mhm.
we have some community engagement coordinators as well that are part of that conversation. So yeah,
Yeah.
we all are kind of rowing together with
Yeah.
the communities, and side by side, kind of trying to learn how we can walk together to side by side in the future. So
Yeah. Nice. Nice. So my next question is kind of a big question here that we do in the Q&As, and that's the idea of challenges you might have come across as a woman in the industry. Do you find that there are particular hurdles or barriers or things, strategies that you found as a woman to kind of overcome some of those challenges?
and I find this one kind of hard. I mean, I haven't
Mhm.
been in the forest industry as a man, so I don't really have anything to compare to. But I certainly I haven't encountered you know blatant anything blatant
Yeah.
as far as a barrier. I mean, I when I talk about things like this barriers, I just really think like it's important I emphasize to myself and to others as well. I think we need to consider kind of that different challenges are going to be a hurdle to across the gender spectrum. So some of our challenges may apply to more than one, right? So if
Mhm.
people think about um, only females as being challenged with a childcare issue, it really depends on the person and
Mhm.
their structure of their family and how they support each other. It might be shift work of your spouse that's actually more challenging. So it's just
Mhm.
different things like that. But yeah, I try to think about I think as leaders of companies and within companies, but also employees, individuals themselves. Really try to encourage people to be thinking about checking biases, um, and perceptions as well about maybe different roles or who may or may not be interested in those roles. I think that's where
Mhm.
kind of the foundation is to moving forward on addressing what may be hurdles.
Mhm.
I don't. I think they're the industry's done a really good job of kind of advancing on some of the more obvious ones, but now we're kind of getting into, companies are looking deeply within and trying to understand what some more of those barriers may be, and they're
Mhm.
wanting to hear back from people about what they're experiencing for sure.
Mhm.
I think if we're taking time to get to know people and understand where they're coming from, what their aspirations are, and not assuming anything, right, about their abilities, but more looking at what their potential could be as well. So just making sure that when we're making judgment calls, it's based on knowing the people and their capabilities and not assuming what they may or may not be interested in. So
Mhm. And like you said, it's gonna be quite unique per person, not necessarily for gender, but per each individual and their situation.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I think for as far as individuals as well, it's something like, we have conversations sometimes. It's about, well, why do you think that, more women haven't put their hand up for this role or that role? And some of that may be within, right? That people think it'll be a certain way if they
Mhm.
are a leader, or they think they'll be treated in a certain way, but they aren't willing to try that. So it was kind of, again, having that conversation with people and thinking about, like, challenging that, and for yourself kind of going, well, why wouldn't I like that, or what do I think about that, and should I check in, before I make my decision about maybe not putting my hand up for that role? Am I sure
Mhm.
that it isn't for me? So
Mhm.
I think, companies are really interested in getting better and getting a more diverse team built for sure. And so I think, if there's interest being expressed and there's a way that you can kind of explore that through job shadowing or something, I think people are willing to, companies are willing to kind of entertain a few different options now to sort of help facilitate that movement towards not
Mhm.
only recruiting more diverse candidates, but developing and into, some non-traditional roles. We've got a lot of
Mhm.
that happening for sure. So.
Yeah, awesome. What advice would you give personally to women who are looking at, possibly getting into the forest industry and seeing if there is a place for them to advance and have a career, a long-term future?
Um, well, first of all, I would say, try to find a company that um, whose culture and values that you love, that you want to work there. The forest industry itself, there's so much variety within each company that I think if you kind
Mhm.
of do that and people are get to know you and you work hard and you're patient at building your skill set, that your reputation will start to precede you, and so people will start to think about you as an option for different roles. But also, I think, be curious. Definitely, I would encourage people to pursue a career in forestry. I just think there's so much opportunity and excitement there, and so, be curious and ask questions and express your interest in advancing, and kind of start to work with your supervisor managers to develop a plan for that. Don't just think about in a narrow view what you think you may or may not like to do. I think there's just so much opportunity within companies or within the industry itself, just to cross all sorts of barriers there. So
Mhm.
and I would say, like, get a variety of experience when you can, at the sort of entry level as well, to sort of build your base. Um, and just, yeah, be really clear about your vision, and I think you find a rewarding career in forestry.
Awesome. Anything else we might have missed? Anything to touch on?
Um, I I think that probably covers it off for me. I'll just keep talking otherwise. Yeah, it's a really exciting time in our industry.
Yeah,
I just, yeah,
yeah.
really think that companies are doing so much, and there's a lot of change happening, and the good companies see the value in building diverse teams, and they're really, getting those initiatives happening with a lot of gusto behind it now, just really
Mhm.
trying to make sure that we're deliberate, and
Mhm.
that we're delivering, actionable and measurable outcomes for women in forestry, but also diverse candidates, underrepresented minorities, as well as Indigenous people in the forest industry. For sure, there's so much opportunities.
Mhm. Awesome. Great, that pretty much covered it. Thank you, Julie.
No problem, Maria.